When I lived in Laguna Beach, my friends used to tell me that for real spiritual life, we have to give up illicit sex and intoxication. And I'd already heard people chanting. And when I went to chant with them at the music festival at the Orange County Fairgrounds, the next week a friend of mine was shooting at animals and he squished a dove with a rock. And I said, that's a cruel thing to do. He said, well, you eat meat, don't you? I said, yes, a lot of us do. He said, so is it any, he said, how many animals they kill for you to eat meat? I said, probably a lot. He said, so does it make me any worse to kill one more bird than for you to eat all those animals? I said, you're right, I'll never eat it again. So Krishna was providing ways and means to me because I had taken steps to him by chanting with the other people. And as I said, my friends used to say that for real spiritual life, someday we need to give up illicit sex and intoxication. So I'd seen in the book Teachings of Lord Chaitanya that bhakti just means that we ask God for some way to develop love for him. So I used to go to my special meditation rock and I would ask for some way to develop love of God. Then I got the strong inspiration that if I really wanted love of God, I have to give up illicit sex and intoxication. I thought, well, this is a big order. It's January 1970. I'll wait till high school's out in June. I'll do it then. And then I thought, no, I should do it now. So I said, all right, God, I'll give up the illicit sex and intoxication. And I thought, how long will it take? A week, a month, a year to find out? And I opened my eyes and there was a devotee 20 meters away walking towards me. And when he came up, I said, what are you doing here at the beach? He said, well, we were chanting on the hill and I had this uncontrollable compulsion to come down to the beach. He says, would you like to come and chant with us? I said, I think that's exactly what I'm supposed to do. So when I took the steps to God, he showed me a way to approach him through Krishna Consciousness. So I started going to the temple in Laguna Beach, and on Sunday we would have a feast there, and then we would all drive to LA to see Srila Prabhupada, the spiritual master. And he would lecture, and I did this from January till June. And when June came, it was time for me to go with my family to Europe after high school. So I decided to stay on at the Paris temple and do Harinama with them there. Of course, in June, Paris is still a pretty warm place. But when it got to December, it was so cold. And finally, it got even colder in January and February. So in February, I prayed to Krishna. I said, Krishna, I'll make you a deal. If you get me out of this cold, I promise never ever to complain about heat ever. So 3 days later, a letter came from Prabhupada saying, please send 3 devotees to India. So I was off. But I went on the Afghan Airways. It went from London, Paris, Rome, Athens, Greece, Cairo, Egypt, Beirut, Lebanon, Kabul, Afghanistan, and finally to Delhi. It was a DC-3, which was an old plane even 47 years ago. But we got to Delhi and people crowded around by the thousands to stare at us, to wonder. They'd seen brahmacharis and they'd seen Westerners, but they'd never seen 3 Western brahmacharis together dressed in saffron. So we took the train, and I was only 18 years old. We took the train from Delhi to Mumbai, and we got to Mumbai. Myself and one other boy were very young. And Prabhupada told the other devotees, you must take care of them. They are very young boys. Is that we were just children that we were there. So my beads had already been sent to Prabhupada to chant on, and he was going to send them back to Paris. But there was a festival on March 27th during the Cross Maidan festival in the center of Mumbai, at the corner of Mahatma Gandhi Road and Veer Nariman Road is a big field they call the Cross Maidan. And they had a big tent there, and thousands of people were coming every night. And so they were going to have an initiation and a wedding on the 27th of March. So I got to be initiated in that. Other people initiated were Mahamsa, Vardhan, Vegavan, Padmavati, and Mahamsa, and Darsha, and Dravida. These ones were also initiated with me. So at this time, I was initiated in front of the deities of Radha Ras Bihari, which now, of course, are in Juhu Temple. So this was an extension of Juhu, even though we didn't have Juhu yet. We were at the Cross Maidan for 12 days, and then the deities went back to where they had been before at the temple at the Akash Ganga building on Warden Road. We were on the 7th floor there. We had a flat there. Also, the Pakistani embassy was on one floor, and Ravi Shankar, the musician, was on another floor. So we had our temple there, and people would come to see us, and Prabhupada would translate books from there. And so we would go on walks with Prabhupada to all the different places. We would go up the road sometimes to walk on the sea face, and sometimes we would walk at the Hanging Gardens. And one time we were walking around the grounds of the Hanging Gardens. It's like a track field, you can walk around it. And these two impersonalist swamis said to us, "Would you like to come to our ashram?" And we said, "Prabhupada, if you want to go, we'll go." And Prabhupada said, "No, not like that." He says, "If we all want to go, we'll go." And I'm thinking, I'm 18 and he's almost 80 and still he's asking us. So we said, why not? Let's go see their ashram. So we go to there, and it says on the wall, Krishna Stu Bhagavan Svayam. And later Prabhupada was remarking they're Mayavadis, but they have on the wall, Krishna Stu Bhagavan Svayam, that Krishna is the original of all the incarnations. So Prabhupada is preaching to them very nicely in Hindi, and then he turns to me and he says, "You just came from France, didn't you?" I said, "Yes, Srila Prabhupada, I did." And I was amazed that he'd remembered that, because devotees had come from all over, and the fact that I'd come from France, but Prabhupada had remembered that. So we had a lot of association with Prabhupada during those days at the Akash Ganga building. I remember it was my duty to go into Prabhupada's room, and I would take Prabhupada was translating the Srimad Bhagavatam, and he had the commentaries by Jiva Goswami and Sridhar Swami and his spiritual master Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So I would put all these books back in the shelf, and then I would bring Prabhupada his prasadam. Then I would go to serve all the other devotees their prasadam. And then I would come back to get the plate, and I would clear the leftovers onto a plate. Then I would clean Prabhupada's plate, and that's what I ate as my prasadam for a couple of months, because I'd served the other devotees out, they'd already gone. So I would eat what was left as my prasadam, and I got to do that for a couple of months. So it was amazing. One time we would go to many life members' house to get inspiration, to inspire people to help us establish a temple here in Mumbai. So we went to one Mr. Shetty. There's a couple of Shetties. One was the construction man who was very instrumental in getting this temple established. And another Mr. Shetty was the spice merchant. And his wife had won a worldwide vegetarian cooking contest. And so we went to their house to eat there. And Prabhupada said at the end, he says, "We're the International Society for Eating Consciousness." He says, "I must take them home or they will want to eat again." So we went home, and then another time we were going in the car to go somewhere, and I told another devotee that in Czechoslovakia they call God Krishna. And Prabhupada says, "What did you say?" I said, "Oh, in Czechoslovakia the name for God is Krishna." And Prabhupada said, "Then we should go there." So Prabhupada was always available to go and preach, and wanted us to preach at the drop of a hat. So another time we were going, Prabhupada was sick, so we didn't think that Prabhupada would come. But we had an engagement at J. Om Prakash's house, who was the biggest movie producer in India at the time. And so we went to his house, and we didn't think Prabhupada was coming, and all of a sudden I turned around and Prabhupada was right behind me. So Prabhupada gave a talk, and then Dr. Bali, the husband of Vijayanti Mala, he gave a talk about how all the peoples pay so much money in taxes that they can easily afford to become a life member. So at that point, many of the Indian movie stars were there because J. Om Prakash was the biggest producer of movies in India. He'd produced that movie Hati Mera Sati and many others. So at that time, Devanand became a life member, and Rajesh Khanna and the four Kapoor brothers and many others became life members. But then J. Om Prakash ruined Indian movies for me because he said, I'll tell you the truth. Indian movies are silly and corny because they'll both get the guns out, they say they'll kill each other, but then they say, but let's have a dance first. And the girls come out with the pom-poms and they do a big dance first. So I thought, if he's the Acharya of Indian movies and he thinks they're silly, maybe I won't watch them. So he ruined it for me. But Prabhupada said he had the golden chickpeas. His house was so big I got lost in the bottom story. But when I heard the kirtan, I just followed the kirtan back to where they went. I went to find a bathroom, and it was such a huge house. But Prabhupada did these kind of preaching engagements. It was amazing the things that Prabhupada would do. He would go to preach at different people's houses. In the morning, he would be chanting and doing the translation of Srimad Bhagavatam. So as it came around to June, Prabhupada was about to go to Russia. And Nanda Kumar wanted me to do Pujari service. So he asked Prabhupada, can you give Gayatri initiation to Kshudi Das before you go? And then, of course, devotees always didn't want Prabhupada to leave. A big basket of mangoes arrived. And this was June of 1971. So Tamal Krishna said to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, you can't leave now because mango season has just begun. And Prabhupada said, preaching in the snows of Russia is sweeter than the sweetest mango. So on the 19th of June, Prabhupada, what had happened is with my beads, because they'd been sent to Prabhupada, I'll go back to my initiation. Because of my initiation, my beads had already been sent to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada had already chanted on them once. So then Prabhupada chanted on them a second time. I thought, wow, I'm getting special mercy. But just before Prabhupada was going to chant on my beads, he said to Guru Das, go in the crowd and get that Western yogi out there. And all you could see was Indians. You didn't see it anywhere. And Guru Das says, where? I don't see any. Prabhupada says, back there. And he keeps pointing. And Guru Das says, I don't see any. All of a sudden, part of the crowd cleared, and there was a Western yogi with matted hair, and Prabhupada said, see right there. But he was pointing there before he came. It'd be just like if someone was saying, open the door for Kshudi Das before I got here, without knowing that I was coming, right? So Prabhupada had Guru Das there. So he got him, and he told him, sit right here next to me, right? And then Prabhupada chanted on my beads. And this just shows me not to be envious of other devotees, even if they came later, because this person became Radhanath Swami. And there were 35,000 people there that night to see the initiation. Not because it was my initiation, but because Prabhupada was there, and we had the big festival with our dancing white elephants, which we were the elephants. And so from there, when it came time for Gayatri initiation, Prabhupada was first going to chant on the threads and then give them to us. Then he decided to do a ceremony. There was myself and Jaganivas, not Jananivas in Mayapur, but Jaganivas. So Prabhupada chanted on our threads and was going to just give them to us instead of having a ceremony. Then he decided to have a ceremony. So then when Prabhupada is coming to put the thread on me, I'm thinking that I'm getting this mercy twice, because first Prabhupada chanted on my beads once, and then he chanted on them again for the festival. And also Prabhupada chanted on the Gayatri, and now he's going to put it around my neck. He got real close to me, and then he stopped for a second and went over to Jaganivas. And Brahmana said, no, Prabhupada, that's supposed to be Shuddhidas's thread. And I said, I know what Prabhupada's doing. I'll explain it to you later. So he was going to give him the double mercy, instead of just me getting that double mercy. So all this time we were talking to life members, and what was good is we had the big program at the Cross Maidan. So the people would get out the phone book and they'd look for the managing directors, and they'd say, did you hear about or come to the program we had at the Cross Maidan? We have another program to tell you about. Of course, the other program was life membership, but it's still a program, just a different kind of program. So we would go to talk to many people too. I remember I went with Bhaktivedanta Swami, and we made Dharmsi and CM Katao life members. Another time there was a rumor that we were CIA people. So I went, Bhaktivedanta Swami's a big, tall Swami with a big danda. We knocked on the door, and they opened the door, and you could see the pictures of Lenin, Trotsky, and Marx, the communist leaders. And Bhaktivedanta Swami peeks his head and says, is Mr. Ishani here? And the guy goes, no, 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 there's no Mr. Ishani here. And he shuts the door, and a couple of minutes later, you see them all run down the stairs and get in the car and drive off. And Bhaktivedanta Swami said, where did they going so fast? I said, you didn't see the communist pictures? They thought we were the CIA hit squad coming to kill them. And so they took off in a hurry, but of course, we weren't part of the CIA. But that's what they thought, and they took off in a hurry. So just because people are afraid of something doesn't mean that it's real. So Prabhupada gave us a lot of time trying to get Bombay established. Now, of course, you call it Mumbai, but then it was Bombay, and he would talk to different important people like Birla and Moffat-Lal, and some of the people that work for Moffat-Lal, like Kumchandra and Kartikeya Mahadevi, would come to the temple quite often to help us out, and many people in the neighborhood there would come to the temple, and we were always thinking to get some land and to build something. And another time when Prabhupada was doing another initiation, and this is when he had come back from Russia, and he came back, and I was fanning Prabhupada, and then I stopped to chant rounds, and a woman was fanning, and she said, why did he stop fanning? And she said, well, he is chanting Mala. And Prabhupada says, then you stop chanting. You are fanning nicely. You keep fanning. So I went back to fanning Prabhupada. Then, of course, we had the war come. There was tension between India and Pakistan, and Pakistan would shell India every couple days and kill a couple people. And it was bad, but it wasn't enough to start a war over. And of course, before this, 10 million extra refugees had come from Bangladesh to India because they didn't want to be killed. And Pakistan was mad at India for accepting them. Now, of course, the last thing India needed was 10 million extra starving people. It was only out of the goodness of their heart that they accepted these. But Pakistan was very mad at this. So they would continue shelling and shelling. And then one day, they bombed the main cities, Delhi, Mumbai, Calcutta. And then India says, all right, now we're going to war. So they went to war on both sides. And so we would have to be inside by dark, and we had to put paper on the windows, and all the lights had to be out. And if somebody turned on one light in the building, you'd hear 1,000 people scream, "Band karo, band karo," because if the Pakistani plane is coming and your building has a light on it, that's where the bomb is going to go. So the one time I'm doing the Artik, and I hear the air raid sirens go off. Wah! One constant sound, that means bombers are coming. And as I'm doing the Artik, I see tracer bullets going in the air, and I see the Pakistani planes out the window, because Akash Ganga was right by the window to the ocean, and by the window there, the DDs were against the window. So by the window, while I'm doing the Artik, I can see these tracer bullets going out in the air, and I can see bombs dropping in the ocean and exploding while I'm going Jayo, Jayo, Gaur. So it was kind of an exciting artik to see tracer bullets going in the air. Every 7th bullet is a red one so they can see where it's going. So you see this big red stream coming up and planes dropping bombs. We were right by the ocean, so they were very close to us. So to see these bombs exploding right close to us was kind of a dangerous thing. So I was a little bit upset about this. So after artik, I used to go into Prabhupada's room and I would put the water on Prabhupada's head and I would give Prabhupada the flower from the artik. And this time when I went into Prabhupada's room, I was in great distress. So I put the water on Prabhupada's head, I gave him the flower, and I started to go. And actually Yadubara and Vishaka were in there, and Tamal Krishna Swami was in there. He wasn't a Swami yet though. And all of a sudden Prabhupada stopped him. He says, just a minute. And he looked up at me and he said, so everything is all right? And just like that, the anxiety was lifted. I wondered where that anxiety went. And I said, yes, Srila Prabhupada, everything is all right. And the next day my mother called from America and said, I saw in the news that Bombay had been bombed by Pakistan. Are you okay? I said, yes, I'm okay. I'm safe here with Prabhupada. So being there with Prabhupada made it all worthwhile. And then, of course, the India-Pakistan war ended, and we were going on a walk with Prabhupada, and all of a sudden he stops and says, what has become of Yahya Khan? Because Yahya Khan was telling the Pakistani people he was winning until the Indian soldiers entered Karachi, and then it was obvious they weren't winning anymore. So he just disappeared. Prabhupada says, I think they have killed him, which the Pakistanis have done with a few of their leaders. So before that, we were, just after we'd been bombed, we stopped to pick up some newspapers to see what else had been bombed or what Pakistan was planning to do. So I'm looking at one paper and Prabhupada's looking at another. And then Prabhupada says, can we trade newspapers? I said, yes, Srila Prabhupada, and went to hand it to him. Prabhupada says, no, he says, when you are finished. So we wanted to see whether we were going to get bombed again or how the war was going. So we felt safe with Prabhupada even when war was going on there in Pakistan. We didn't feel like it was any difficulty because we were there with Prabhupada. So we would still go to so many programs with Prabhupada, and we would always greet Prabhupada when he came in. One time on the way out, Prabhupada was walking, and one woman had a little dog, and Prabhupada waves his finger at the dog, and the dog just stares at Prabhupada with rapt attention. Wouldn't take his eyes off of Prabhupada. And I remember when I'd go in Prabhupada's room to take him the prasadam, I felt like I was in a fishbowl. Because when you're in a fishbowl, everyone's looking at you. I felt like there was no secrets I could have from Prabhupada. He could see right through me and see exactly to who I am. So being there with Prabhupada, of course, was a great thing to have. Then after Prabhupada had gone away, then my mother came to visit Mumbai. And my mother was actually an attorney, and she'd done some work for the devotees there, and she was particularly a trust attorney. So Prabhupada asked the devotees, we need to write a Bhaktivedanta book trust. Can we use an attorney? He says, well, Kshudi Das's mother is an attorney. Why don't we use her? So she went to see Prabhupada, and she spent a couple hours with Prabhupada discussing all the details. I actually have a DVD disc with my mother talking about her experiences with Prabhupada. Because then she came to visit me in Mumbai, and after my mother had done the legal work with Prabhupada, because she discussed all the details of the book trust, she made the book trust a legal entity. And I remember when my mother had passed away like 8 years ago, one of her secretaries, Jean Cadwell, was there. And Jean Cadwell was the witness for the Bhaktivedanta book trust. If you see it there, it says witnessed by Jean Cadwell, because she was my mother's secretary, and she came up with her. So she was the witness on the documents of the Bhaktivedanta book trust. So that's a great glory for her that she got to be the witness of signing the documents for Bhaktivedanta book trust. So when my mother came to Mumbai, she said, guess who I've just been with? And she told all the devotees, I've been there with Prabhupada. And I asked her, did you ask Prabhupada if he knew who your son was? And she said, yes. I asked Prabhupada, do you know who my son is? And Prabhupada says, yes, he's the young brahmachari in Mumbai, isn't he? Because I was like only 18 and looked about 13. So my mother got to meet with him. And as I said, I have this whole disc of Prabhupada. My mother went to a women's conference of devotees and talked about her experiences with Prabhupada and her experiences with the devotees in different parts of the world. Maybe you can make a copy of that if you want. But she came and visited the temple there, and then we also got to go to Vrindavan, and we got to see the Banki Bihari and Govindaji's temple, and we went to Radha Damodar. But during that time, we didn't go to Juhu or to Krishna Balaram Mandir because they weren't open yet. This was 1971. No, this was 72. Was it? Wait. No, this was summer of 71. So from there I went to Mayapur, where Prabhupada was going to lay the cornerstone, and Rishi Kumar Swami said that he wanted to go to Africa, and he said he asked Prabhupada if I could go too, and Prabhupada said yes. And I thought, why me? And then I thought, well, why not me? So we went to Mayapur, and Prabhupada laid the cornerstone for Mayapur, and he went in to put dirt in, and his godbrothers went in, because all of his godbrothers came. Then the sannyasis went in, and then I got to go in and put in dirt. And it was very brilliant the way Prabhupada approached it, because he said to his godbrothers, he says, now that we're all together, he said, we will do what our spiritual master, Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Prabhupada wanted. We'll form a governing body, and from today forward, we'll work as one movement instead of so many different groups. And they all went jai, but they didn't do it. But it was brilliant. He just sort of assumed that that would be the next step, that from today forward, we'll work as one movement. And they all agreed, but they didn't get around to it. So the next day I went into Srila Prabhupada's room, and I said, Srila Prabhupada, I'm going to Africa now. I hope this gives me an opportunity to increase my service to you. And Prabhupada put his hands behind his head, and he simply said, service to Lord Chaitanya, service to Lord Chaitanya, service to Lord Chaitanya. And about this time Mr. Nair had said he would give us a piece of land to use for a temple in Juhu. And it turned out Prabhupada had actually prayed for this piece of land, which is where we are right now in Juhu, that before he went to America, he prayed to Krishna that I'd like to use this land to build a temple at. And this is what Mr. Nair said that he would give. Of course, then he said there was a loan to pay off and a few other things to pay, so it ended up being a big fiasco to actually acquire proper title to the land. But by this time I was on the way to Africa, and I was there with Rishi Kumar Swami. And if you listen to Nectar Devotion 1 tape, about 33 minutes in, Prabhupada talks about how he got a letter that Rishi Kumar and Kshudi Das, he calls me a Bengali pronunciation, Kshudi Das, are in South Africa preaching there. So he mentions that there. Then one day I wake up and Rishi Kumar is gone, and I find a note that just says, Dear Kshudi, decided to split. So I find I'm all alone in this country, where I'm 2 miles from any neighbors and 2,000 miles from any devotees. So I thought, well, I don't want to make Rishi Kumar look bad, but I don't want to hide what he's done either. So I'll just write to Prabhupada and tell him that he left me a note just saying decided to split, and he took the money with him. So I sent copies to Karundar and to Brahmananda, GBC in East Africa, but the letter from Prabhupada came back the quickest. And I wondered why it could come back, and Shaimashundar told me because he used to open the letters and see what was in them, and he told Prabhupada, Prabhupada, a letter came from Kshudi Das, and he said that Rishi Kumar left him alone with the only explanation, decided to split and took all the money with him. So it wasn't a huge amount, maybe a couple $1,000. But we owed $12,000 to the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. So I wrote to Prabhupada that, and I said, if I owe $12,000, which I plan to spend more time distributing books and less time doing programs, because my first duty will be to pay off the book debt. I said, so if I order $3,000 more worth of Gitas, then I'll tell the people they can't have the Gita unless they buy the whole set of books. So I thought maybe I said I would make incense sticks to sell when I sold books or to sell at programs, and I thought maybe I'm in trouble for making so many decisions. But there weren't any devotees there. I would have even asked neighbors if I had any neighbors, but there was no one else to ask, so I just had to make the decisions. So a letter came back quickly, and I opened the top, and the first line said, "I'm very much pleased." So I thought, well, this is good. If the first line says, "I'm very much pleased," I'm not in trouble. And he says, "I'm very much pleased at the responsibility you've taken to spread Krishna consciousness in South Africa at such a young age." He said, "Rishi Kumar was tempted by Maya and he fell, but now I'm going to advise him just to work on his own spiritual life." And he said, "Somehow or other you are left alone by our Narada Muni, and Narada Muni became one of our greatest devotees." He said, "So now I am praying to Krishna that you will have the strength and enthusiasm to carry out this mission." He says, "Chant your 16 rounds and follow the 4 regulative principles. This will keep your consciousness pure and eager to engage in devotional service." So I felt very encouraged by that letter. And Prabhupada had asked Brahmananda to come down, but he kept writing me letters on the way, and when he got to the border, they wouldn't allow him in because he had African devotees with him, and blacks from other countries were not allowed in South Africa. And then Prabhupada sent Duradarshan, who stayed a few weeks and then left. So basically I was there for 6 months alone, and then Prabhupada had asked Pushta Krishna to come. So when the police caught up with me in South Africa, I'd sold enough books to pay off the book debt. So since Pushta Krishna was coming, I called him and says, "You got to be here tomorrow." And he showed up the next day, and I gave him a car, and I gave him $4,500 worth of books that were paid for, and I was off to America. So in America, we would go to see Prabhupada lecture in LA, because I was in Laguna Beach, and he came to Laguna Beach. There's a talk that he gave like in July of 1975 at Laguna Beach. And I was not there when Srila Prabhupada left the world. But today I find I can contact Prabhupada, because in Mumbai I remember that at the Akash Ganga building, when I would wake up early to get the Mangal Artik ready and do the Mangal Artik, that Prabhupada would be in the next room translating the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And I could hear part of it, but not all of it. Today I can take the books, or I can have in my Kindle that I keep with me, and I can stay in touch with Prabhupada's words and Prabhupada's philosophy as much of the time as I can. And this keeps me in touch with Prabhupada. So I find even though Srila Prabhupada has left this world, Srila Prabhupada has not left this world through his teachings and through his memories. So I try to keep these conscious in my mind so that I will remember him. And of course from Akash Ganga building they moved to Juhu and had many struggles here that other devotees will tell about it. But today it's a very thriving temple where many thousands of people come every day. And I'm glad to come back here for the 40th reunion of the opening of this temple to be a part of it. And I plan to come for the 50th reunion, although I may not make it for the 75th reunion. But I'm glad to be here today. Thank you. Hare Krishna.